They sit across from each other at a coffee shop, navigating the awkward silence of a first date. Are they going to marry? In theory, the marriage market should be perfect, with equal numbers of men and women and high personal motivation. Yet, the reality is a catastrophe, as marriage rates have plummeted by 60% since the early 1970s. Birth rates are collapsing across the globe, leaving cradles empty and baby bottles gathering dust on the kitchen counter. Loneliness has become a defining feature of the modern age, affecting millions who are searching for genuine human connection. A person lies in a dark room, illuminated only by the harsh blue light of their smartphone screen late at night. They are trapped in a cycle of swiping left and right, hoping for a match that never quite seems to materialize. The fundamental question remains: why is the marriage market so broken? And why do these systems consistently fail us? The primary culprit is information asymmetry, where users are forced to make life-altering decisions based on a few photos. You do not know if the person has crippling debt, or if they possess the kindness required for a partnership. Cultural conditioning plays a massive role, with people filtering potential matches based on arbitrary metrics like height or status. Psychological bias further complicates the process, as most individuals significantly overestimate their own value by about 30%. Then there are the platforms themselves, which are designed to keep you searching rather than finding a lasting partner. Dating apps do not make money when you find love, because a successful match leads you to delete the application. They thrive when you stay lonely, turning your personal desire for companionship into a profitable recurring business model. To understand this market failure, consider the computer scientist, one of the most stable and high-earning professionals today. He sits at his desk, earning a six-figure salary with full benefits, yet he struggles to find a partner. For 30 years, the dating market has failed to price in the value of stability, intelligence, and long-term security. A split screen reveals the contrast: the computer scientist on one side, and a man with visible abs on the other. The woman in the scenario walks toward the abs, leaving the stable, high-earning professional sitting entirely alone at his table. It turns out that telling someone you optimize complex algorithms for a living is rarely an effective pickup line. Who could have guessed that 6 figures of annual income would lose out to the simple aesthetic of physical fitness? This is a textbook market failure, where vital information is available to all parties but the market ignores it. If the marriage market is this inefficient, we must ask ourselves why we place so much trust in financial markets. Imagine a bustling stock exchange floor, where traders shout over one another as red and green numbers flash rapidly. The uncomfortable answer is that we should not trust these systems because the models taught in school are fantasies. These economic models assume perfect information and rational actors, but in the real world, neither of those things exists. A professor stands before a whiteboard, drawing supply and demand curves, then crossing them out to explain the short side. In reality, outcomes are determined by whichever quantity demand or supply is smaller, a principle often ignored in standard textbooks. In financial markets, the short side is almost always the supply of credit being created by private commercial banks. A banker sits at his desk, typing on a computer, effectively creating money out of thin air with a keystroke. He chooses where that new money goes, often sending it to real estate developers rather than local small business owners. He is not a passive intermediary moving existing cash. He is an active creator of the entire money supply. The models that hide this reality were not accidents, but rather the result of a deliberate effort by wealthy industrialists. A history book opens to reveal how elites funded economists to bury critical questions about power and economic exploitation. They did not want anyone asking who truly owns the land, who controls the capital, or who keeps the profits. To prevent this, they made economics abstract, mathematical, and seemingly apolitical, stripping away the human element of the system. Modern economics has become a pseudoscience dressed up in complex calculus to intimidate anyone who asks the wrong questions. A graduation cap is thrown into the air, and beneath it, a dollar sign appears, symbolizing the true goal. The marriage market is clearly broken, but at least we have the awareness to admit that it is failing. We openly complain about dating apps and laugh at the absurdity of bad profiles because we know they are flawed. We refuse to take economic models of dating seriously because we intuitively understand that they are inherently stupid. It is time to apply that same level of healthy skepticism to the world of global finance and banking. The models used by central banks are just as stupid, their assumptions are false, and the experts are often lying. A Nobel Prize winner stands at a podium, preaching about efficient markets just before a massive financial crisis hits. His hedge fund collapses, you lose your home in the fallout, yet he somehow manages to keep his Nobel Prize. Do not trust the experts. Not because they are inherently evil, but because they were taught dangerous, simplified lies. Their textbooks are essentially propaganda, and their models are nothing more than comforting fantasies for the political elite. The people who fund university economics departments are often the same people who own and operate the largest banks. They have absolutely no incentive to teach you the truth about how money is created and who controls it. Fortunately, the truth is available to anyone willing to look, with research from experts like Richard Werner available online. The Bank of England's own papers are free to read, explaining exactly how the process of credit creation works. Learn this one thing, as it only takes an hour to understand the mechanics of how our money is born. Once you understand, start asking different questions, such as why we are told we cannot afford basic public health care. Banks create money for war and speculation. So why is that same mechanism not used to fund essential services? When pundits blame immigrants for wage stagnation, ask where the new money actually went and who benefited from it. Follow the money, because it never truly leaves the room. It just shifts from the public to the private sector. The financial market is a bigger mess than the marriage market, yet they have convinced you it is natural. They want you to believe it is like gravity, something you cannot change, but that is a calculated, persistent lie. The financial market is a human creation, and because it was created by people, it can be changed by people. Financial markets are frequently presented to the public as immutable natural laws, akin to the fundamental forces of gravity or thermodynamics. We are taught to view the stock exchange floor as a chaotic but ultimately objective mechanism for determining the value of everything. Yet, these systems are entirely human constructs, built upon academic models that conveniently ignore the realities of power and exploitation. The economic theories taught in universities often rely on the fantasy of rational actors operating within a perfectly transparent information landscape. In reality, these models are designed to obscure the underlying mechanics of wealth distribution and the concentration of capital in few hands. Mainstream economics often operates with funding from those who benefit most from the status quo, reinforcing a specific, narrow worldview. Historically, wealthy industrialists have poured resources into academic departments to bury uncomfortable questions about who truly owns the land. They did not want the public to scrutinize who controls the capital or who ultimately walks away with the vast majority of profits. To achieve this, they transformed economics into something abstract, highly mathematical, and seemingly apolitical, distancing it from the messy reality of life. This narrative effectively masks the active, critical role that commercial banks play in the actual creation of money within our society. Most people believe money is a scarce resource managed by central banks, but the truth is far more decentralized and powerful. When a banker sits at a desk and types into a computer, they are not just moving existing money, they are creating it. This process of credit creation is the engine of our modern economy, yet it remains hidden behind layers of complex financial jargon. Instead of funding productive social needs, this created money is frequently directed towards speculative ventures that offer little real-world value. Banks decide exactly where this new money flows, favoring real estate developers over small business owners or essential public services. This is not a passive intermediary process. The banker acts as an active creator of the money supply, shaping our collective future. By treating these flawed models as objective science, society is conditioned to accept wage stagnation and systemic inequality as inevitable outcomes. We are told that if the market is failing, it is simply a natural correction rather than a result of specific policy choices. This conditioning makes us feel powerless, as if we are merely spectators watching a storm we cannot possibly hope to influence. However, the truth regarding how credit is truly created is accessible to anyone willing to look past the propaganda of textbooks. Research papers from institutions like the Bank of England exist in the public domain, detailing exactly how the system functions today. Scholars like Richard Werner have spent decades documenting these mechanisms, providing a clear map for those who seek to understand them. By unlearning these artificial constraints and following the money, we can finally see the financial system for what it really is. It is not a force of nature, but a structure designed by people, which means it can be dismantled and rebuilt. When a politician claims we cannot afford healthcare or infrastructure, we must learn to ask the right questions about credit creation. If banks can create money for war or speculative bubbles, why is that same mechanism not utilized for the public good? When pundits blame immigrants or technology for wage stagnation, look at where the newly created money actually ended up going. Follow the capital trail, and you will find it flowing into real estate speculation and corporate share buybacks, not into wages. The money never leaves the room. It simply changes hands in a way that benefits those who already hold the most power. It is time to stop trusting the experts blindly and start questioning the fundamental architecture of our global economy today. The marriage market is a mess, but at least we have the clarity to admit that the system is fundamentally broken. We laugh at bad dating profiles and recognize the absurdity of app-based romance, yet we fail to apply that same skepticism to finance. The financial models taught in schools are just as flawed, yet they are treated with a reverence that defies all logic. Consider the Nobel Prize winner who stands at a podium, preaching about market efficiency while their own hedge fund collapses. They keep their accolades and their status, while the average person loses their home, their savings, and their sense of security. Do not trust the experts simply because they hold a title. Often, they are merely repeating the lies they were taught. Their textbooks are essentially propaganda, designed to protect the interests of the people who fund the economics departments. These institutions have no incentive to teach you the truth, because the truth would threaten the very foundation of their power. But the truth is available to anyone with an internet connection and the patience to study for just 1 hour. Learn how credit creation works, and you will suddenly see the world through a completely different, more critical lens. The financial market has convinced you that its current state is a natural law, something as unchangeable as the rising sun. That is the greatest lie of all, designed to keep you from demanding the changes that our society desperately needs. The financial market is a human creation, built by people, and therefore it can be changed by people as well. It is time to unconvince yourself of the myths that have been fed to you since you first entered a classroom. It is time to unlearn the lies that serve to keep the status quo firmly in place, regardless of the human cost. It is time to learn the truth about how money is created and who really controls the levers of our economy. Once you understand the mechanics, you can no longer be fooled by the abstract models that hide the reality of power. The power to reshape our future lies in our collective ability to see through the facade and demand a better system. The path forward begins with a single question, a single hour of study, and a refusal to accept the status quo.